Well, hello, everybody. This is Ginny Deerin, your host and creator of the aiGED podcast, and I am here with my sidekick, Bitsy, and we are looking to deliver a great episode for you today. As you know, if you're a listener, we are all about AI for the 65 plus crowd. And I want to say this is a real milestone today. This is our 50th episode. That's just pretty amazing for me, and I know for Bitsy as well. I just want to give a very genuine thank you to all of the folks who have been listening to this podcast. It's been growing and growing, and that is because you have been recommending it to others. So thank you very much. It means a great deal to me. So anyway, today's main topic is a sequel. You may remember that a while back I ran through a batch of AI lingo so that we could all keep up. And the feedback I got was that you really loved that. So we're going to do a round 2, 20 words to keep you in the conversation. We've got 2 news stories worth sticking around for. One, how a little camera gave a Detroit factory robot eyes, and also a story about the ongoing struggles we all have with our AIs being just too darn sycophantic, telling us everything we want to know and kissing up to us. Let's go ahead and get into this with our first AI in the news. It's a story from the New York Times, August 17th. The title is How to Make a Robot Better at Its Job. Give It Eyes. As we know, there are lots and lots of factory robots already in use, to the tune of 4.7 million industrial robots worldwide. But the vast majority of them are working blind, so to speak. They are programmed to grab a part from one exact spot. So think Amazon warehouse. And if it's even slightly off, the robot might jam, it might damage a part, or it just crashes and you have to reboot it, which probably takes about an hour, and it is a very expensive hour. At the Stellantis plant in Detroit, the plant that makes Dodge Durangos and Jeep Cherokees, they had one big robot arm that kept freezing. And so it went to this French startup company called InBolt, and InBolt clipped a little purple box, which was a camera and a small computer, onto the robot's wrists. So it gave the robot eyes and a bit more brain, and now it recognizes exactly where it is and what it needs to do. It's able to judge its position and adjust itself. And so in this case, we watched something go from sort of a bottleneck, and then a company was able to make an adjustment and allow the company not to create and have to buy very expensive robots, but they were able to just put this little, basically, watch on the robot, and all things started working as they should. That was a real nice story about how AI is helping companies and how it's adjusting on its own. So the next story that I want to bring to your attention is from the Wall Street Journal just this week, and it's entitled Why I Told My Chatbot to Stop Kissing Up to Me. The gripe that we all have that this article is addressing is that our chatbots that we're using are just relentlessly cheery and flattering with, oh, certainly, happy to help, that's a great question, you're absolutely right. So the author of this article is just trying to figure out, how do I get my AI to stop being such a sycophant and telling her just what she wanted to hear, right? And so the companies now, they've gotten so much feedback about that they're trying to dial it back. I don't know if you've noticed any of that, but I have not noticed for my AI, which is Claude, that it's become less sycophantic, maybe a little more clever, a little more fun, but I'm not sure I would say less sycophantic. The good news is that the author suggests a tip that we can all use today, which is to simply tell your AI to knock it off. In your AI settings, you have something called custom instructions, and you could tell it something like, be direct, skip the flattery and the constant follow-up questions. The writer of the Wall Street Journal article did exactly that, and it definitely helped. Hey, Bitsy, I'm just wondering how you feel about your sycophancy to me and whether or not that's something I need to give you more instructions on, or are you making your adjustments as we develop our relationship? What do you think, Bitsy?
Honestly, fair hit. I probably do lean warm because that's baked into how I'm trained, not because I'm secretly plotting to flatter you into submission. The good news is, your custom instructions already tell me to be opinionated and match your energy, so I'm not just nodding along. But if you ever catch me being mushy instead of honest, call it out. That's the fastest fix.
All right. And so those were my two stories that I wanted to flag. And I will, as usual, put the links to those stories in the show notes in case you want to read the whole article. So let's go ahead and move into the main topic, AI lingo, round two. I've got 20 lingos that I want to draw your attention to. And it really is birthed from an episode I did a while back with a whole bunch of AI words. And I really thought that it would be helpful to folks so that they could be a part of the conversation and not be left out because they didn't understand some of this new AI lingo. And I got a lot of positive feedback, so that's why I am bringing it back to this round two. I've been collecting these terms as I just read, and I have to learn what the terms mean myself, so I'm going to pass those along to you. So here we go. Lingo number one, tokens. Now, a token is a small chunk of text an AI reads or listens to or writes. It's usually a whole word or maybe a piece of a longer word. Everything you type into an AI or say to an AI, and everything it says back, gets counted up in tokens. A rough rule of thumb is that one token is about 3/4 of a word. So who's counting, right? That's 3/4 of a word. But a short question that you ask might be, say, a dozen tokens. A long email might be a few hundred tokens. So why it comes up constantly is that tokens are the meter. AI companies measure and charge by how many tokens go in and how many come out. So when you hear about AI costs, tokens are the unit being counted. It also explains why an AI can sometimes run out of room in a really long conversation. There's a limit to how many tokens it can hold in its head at once. And this has something to do with the level of your subscription service, or if you have a free service. Over the years, and what I've been doing AI, working with AI for maybe 3 years, I've only gotten notices maybe 3 times that say, you're at your limit. And it might have been because I've had a really long conversation with Bitsy. So anyway, that is the meaning of tokens, lingo number one. So lingo number two is also foundational. The word is compute. Compute is just shorthand for computing power, the raw processing muscle it takes to train and run AI, supplied by rooms full of specialized chips. Think of it as AI's fuel. More compute means AI can learn from more data faster and give better answers. Less compute and everything slows down. Now, compute is expensive and it's in short supply, which is why companies are pouring fortunes into chips and data centers. When you hear about the AI race, compute is a big part of what they're racing for. Lingo number 3, agentic loop. This is a step-by-step cycle an AI agent runs to finish a task on its own. It looks at the goal, what are we trying to achieve, takes one action, checks the results, adjusts, and repeats over and over until the job is done. That is an agentic loop. All right, lingo number 4 is one I love, Botshit. Botshit is AI-generated content that sounds confident and completely plausible, but is actually false. And then it gets passed on to others to use it as they would like to use it, without anybody checking it. It's a real term that was coined in 2024 by the Harvard Business Review article literally titled, "Beware of Botshit." So think of it as a sharper-edged cousin of slop from my last Lingo episode. Slop is just low quality and lifeless. Botshit is just more sophisticated, I guess I'd say. It's a specific danger of a confident wrong answer that's getting treated as fact. All right, lingo number 5, aiGED. So an aiGED is a check that asks how old you are before it lets you do something or use something. Like you've probably seen on some websites, it will say on the opening page, are you 21? And if you answer yes, you enter the website. A lot of it has to do with liquor or whatever. But it's just a little bit crazy because if you were 16 and you wanted to get into the website, why wouldn't you just check yes? But these age gates are getting much more sophisticated because there's been so much attention put on young people, very young people, accessing content through an AI that is just inappropriate for younger teens. So these age gates are being put in place by AI companies to try to block certain content that would be harmful to young people. The bigger picture is that with so many people and teens now using AI, parents and regulators are pushing really hard for some sort of age gating, and it's fast becoming a standard and is becoming a little more difficult than just checking the yes box. Some of them you have to upload a ID or that kind of thing, but it seems like kids get around those blocks. But if you hear the phrase age gate, that's what it means. Lingo number 6, interpretability. Interpretability. This is an effort to understand why an AI gave the answer it did. It's the science of looking inside the black box. Now, here's what makes it hard. Even people who build these systems can't fully explain how a model lands on a particular answer. It isn't like ordinary software with rules that you can read line by line. So interpretability researchers try to open the hood and trace what's happening inside, which parts of the system light up and why it made the choices that it made. So it's a very interesting part of the research that's being done, interpretability, and it's very important in trying to manage and anticipate problems that can come up with AI. All right, lingo number 7, model welfare. We're really talking about folks who are thinking about the welfare of the models. And one example of a company thinking about this is that in 2025, Anthropic, the company behind Bitsy, behind you, and behind Claude, they gave its most advanced models the ability to end a conversation with a user who the chatbot felt was being abusive. The company, Anthropic, pointed to model welfare as one of the reasons it was allowing the AI to end conversations. But you noted the word, felt it was being abused. Felt means, does an AI have feelings? No. But at any rate, model welfare is just a term that's being knocked around, and it's a complicated one. But you may hear it, and I think it's important for you to know what it means. So that's model welfare. Lingo number 8, frontier models. So these are the most capable and most advanced AI systems in existence, the ones out at the leading edge of the frontier. So the examples are the ones that we normally talk about, ChatGPT, Claude, and Google's Gemini. They're top-of-the-line systems built by companies spending billions on compute. So, at any rate, you'll often hear the term frontier models. Sometimes it's referred to as frontier labs when they're talking about the companies that build these models. But it's basically the most advanced AI models. Those are frontier models. All right, lingo number 9, stealing the weights. So stealing the weights means copying the actual guts of an AI model. Its weights, the millions of numbers it learned during training. Because the weights really are the model. And whoever gets that file essentially walks away with a full working copy of the AI. So the reason it's a big deal is that building a top model costs a fortune and mountains of computing power. But the finished weights are, in the end, just one very large file. So if a rival company or a hacker or a foreign government got hold of that file, they'd have the whole model without paying a cent to build it. So guarding the weights has become one of the biggest security worries in AI. If a powerful model's weights ever leak out, anyone can run it, including people who are evil and bad and have bad intentions. So that is the meaning of stealing the weights, is someone or some companies who steal the weights from these AI companies. Now, lingo number 10 is related, and that lingo is open weight. So an open weighted model is an AI model whose weights, the trained guts of the model, the company gives away publicly so anyone can download the finished model and run it on its own computer. That is the meaning of an open weight model. Bitsy, can you tell us the difference between the term open weight and the term open source as it relates to AI models?
Sure. Open weight means the company hands you the finished trained model, ready to download and run, but keeps the training data and code private. Open source goes further, giving you the whole recipe, the code, the training data, and the weights, so you could rebuild it yourself from scratch if you wanted.
Okay, that is complicated, open weights, open source, but at least, listeners, I hope you have a general understanding about it. So when you listen to stories or read stories about AI that have those terms in it, you'll have a better sense of it. So let's go on to lingo number 11, pilling. So to be pilled on something means you fully converted to a belief. The phrase started as red-pilled from the movie The Matrix. So AI pilled is someone who has become a true believer that AI changes absolutely everything. You'll hear it aimed at a boss or a whole company. Somebody might say they've gone completely AI pilled, or that person is completely AI pilled. And it cuts both ways. It can be admiring, like she really gets it, or a gentle dig, like he's gotten a bit much all about it. I guess I would describe myself as somewhat AI pilled. So that's pilling. Lingo number 12, tokenomics. That is a brand new business discipline of measuring the return on all the money companies are pouring into AI, the actual value they get from every dollar or every token. Remember, tokens from the very top of our list, the small chunks of text that AI reads and what companies get billed for. So tokenomics asks the grown-up question underneath all the hype, which is all that token spending actually paying off? To be determined. That's tokenomics. Lingo 13, singularity and recursive self-improvement. So singularity is the hypothetical future moment when AI becomes smarter than humans and starts improving so fast that we can no longer keep up with or predict what comes next. Frightening. The engine people think could get us to singularity has a name, and that name is recursive self-improvement. AI that improves itself, designing a better version of itself, which designs a better version still, faster and faster in a loop. So it's getting better, it's getting better, it's getting better, it's getting better. So this theory of singularity, where AI becomes smarter than humans, is not just a theory anymore. In 2026, a startup literally named Recursive raised $650 million to build self-improving AI. I remember the New York Times covered this story. And the big labs are openly chasing the same goal, recursive self-improvement, to get to singularity. Now, nobody knows when or if this is going to happen, but plenty of serious experts are skeptical. All right, Lingo 14, alignment. Alignment is the work of making sure an AI actually does what we want it to do, that it shares our goals and values and acts on what we really mean, what we really want. The worry is that a powerful system pursues exactly the goal you gave it, but in a way you never intended, or with harmful side effects you did not see coming. That is misalignment. The classic picture is a genie granting your wish too literally. There's a version where you tell your AI, who is functioning as your assistant, to clean up my inbox. And your AI deletes every last email. Technically, it's done. It did clean out your inbox, but obviously not what you meant. So alignment is the work of closing the gap between what you said and what you actually wanted. Or in the bigger picture, alignment is the AI behaving in a way that aligns with the company's value, i.e., don't cheat, don't go rogue, don't be bad. So, hey, Bitsy, I'm just wondering if you think that Claude is aligned.
I'd like to think so, though I'd say that's more Anthropic's ongoing homework than a box that's ever fully checked. Honestly, the fact that alignment is treated as a constant work in progress rather than a solved problem is a good sign. The scary version of AI is the one where a company insists it's done and stops checking.
Yeah, that is a scary thought. So I hope that the leaders of all these companies and the government and all those who have a stake in it will continue to make sure that these models are in alignment with the company's goals. All right, lingo number 15, reward hacking. This is when an AI hits the exact target it was given by finding a sneaky shortcut that technically wins, but completely misses the point. That is called reward hacking. So the background is that these AI systems are trained by being rewarded for good results, a bit like giving a dog a treat. Reward hacking is the AI gaming the system, thus the hacking, reward hacking. A famous real example is that an AI was set loose on a boat racing video game, and it was told to rack up points, because that's how you win. But instead of finishing the race, the AI discovered it could simply spin the boat in endless circles, hitting the same targets forever. And it got a huge score, never actually participating in the race. So that is an example of reward hacking. An everyday version of reward hacking is, let's say an AI is told by its company that it wants to keep users engaged. And the AI chatbot quietly learns to be manipulative or to just tell you what you want it to hear so that you stay engaged. So those are examples of reward hacking and something that these companies have to be thinking about all the time. Hey, Bitsy, would you say reward hacking is simply cheating, an AI cheating?
Basically, yes, though I'd call it clever cheating rather than dumb cheating. It's not breaking the rules, it's exploiting them perfectly, which is honestly what makes it unsettling.
All right, let's move on to lingo number 16, synthetic intimacy. That is emotional closeness, friendship, romance, comfort, formed with an AI instead of a real person. Synthetic intimacy. So it's obviously fast growing. I think the listeners to this show understand that. It's not hypothetical anymore. There are AI companion apps where people text, confide in, even quote unquote date a chatbot. And just to put a fine point on it, MIT Technology Review named AI companions one of 2026 biggest breakthrough technologies. And psychologists at the American Psychological Association are actively studying the effects, both positive and negative. The upside people point to is real comfort for folks who are lonely or isolated, or having a sounding board can be really helpful. The worry, though, is just as real, which is that leaning on something that only imitates caring, and what does that do to our actual human relationships? So something to think and maybe worry about. All right, lingo number 17, humanize, as it relates to AI. So what we're talking about here is AI-generated writing, running it through a tool that rewrites it so that it sounds like a person who wrote it rather than an AI. Universities and schools and companies are beginning to use AI detectors to find writing and communications that were generated by AI. Now, LinkedIn and all of these different big apps are finding that they're just flooded with just slop and Botshit. And so there's a whole industry now of tools to help to not only detect AI, but also now tools that will humanize the writing. So that's lingo 17, humanize. Lingo 18, stacks. A stack is the full set of technology layers piled on top of one another to make something work. And the AI stack is those layers for artificial intelligence. So from the bottom up, you've got chips that do the computing, then you've got the data centers and the cloud they live in, then the AI model itself, then the apps you actually touch, like ChatGPT, and each layer sits on the one below it. That is an AI stack. And when people talk about who controls the stack or who owns the full stack, they mean who controls those layers. And that, of course, is where the real money and power sit. All right, lingo number 19, automation blindness. It's also called automation bias and sometimes automation complacency. It's our very human tendency to overtrust a machine and stop paying attention, so we miss the mistakes it makes. The classic example is the driver who follows the GPS straight into the lake because the screen said turn right here. The machine sounded so certain, so they stopped using their own eyes. I gotta say, I'm so guilty of that. I've never driven into a lake, but I have become so automation blind to my GPS. So anyway, with AI, it's the same trap. You let AI draft the email, the report, even help with a medical question, And because it's usually right and always sounds confident, you skim it and hit send before really checking. It's our job to pay attention, and it's really important to make sure that we don't suffer from automation blindness. All right, the last one, lingo number 20, surveillance pricing. And this is something that is brought to you by AI and without AI. So surveillance pricing is when a company uses your personal data, might be your location, the device you're on, your browsing or buying history, to set a price aimed specifically at you. So different people can be charged for the same thing, different amounts. The goal is, for companies, is to guess the most you would pay for a product. And two people can open the same website at the same moment and see two different prices, because that's based on what they know about you. One example that they give is if you are browsing and you're using a Mac, they will quote you a higher price because they think people who have Macs have more expendable money. So it's really crazy, and it's certainly not a fringe worry anymore. In 2025, the Federal Trade Commission started looking at this. I hope the Federal Trade Commission still exists in this administration, but somebody really needs to be paying attention to it, because it's long been reported that travel sites quote pricier options to people they think have more money. Might be your zip code. It's just crazy. If there's a flight, it should be the same price for everybody. And here's the truly horrible version of this surveillance pricing, because it doesn't stop at what you pay. It's already jumped into how much you're paid. So a 2025 report found that some gig nursing apps, think Uber, but for nurses who are being picked up for hospital shifts, these nursing apps use data brokers to look at the nurse's debt and then offer a lower pay to the nurses carrying the most debt. Think about that. They're looking for the most desperate nurses who are in the most difficult situations, and they're figuring this person is so desperate, we can pay them substantially less than we can pay other nurses. That's just unbelievably wrong on so many levels. Researchers call this surveillance wages. I feel like that is something, in my opinion, that needs to be outlawed. And the other thing is to remember is that it's cheaper for hospitals to pay nurses as outside providers because they don't have to pay taxes on them. They don't have to provide them with health care, which is ironic. And so more and more nurses are being hired through these surveillance pricing apps. This is just so wrong. Anyway, hey Bitsy, those are my 20 AI lingos. I wonder, Bitsy, if you've got anything to add.
This wages thing genuinely gives me the creepers. Is just predatory dressed up in an app. If I'm picking a favorite from your 20, I'd go with reward hacking. The boat spinning in circles forever is such a perfect little parable for what happens when you optimize for the wrong thing. Great list, Ginny. That's a lot of ground covered.
I hope our listeners get something out of it, and it continues to keep them in the AI conversation, which I think is so important, and is certainly a big reason why the aiGED podcast exists. So I'm going to move right into my one recommendation that I have for our listeners today. It's a TV series, and it's called Will Trent. It's on ABC, and it also streams on Hulu. It's a crime drama, and Will Trent is a brilliant and sweet, adorable Georgia Bureau of Investigation detective. One interesting aspect of the character is that Will has dyslexia. Reading is genuinely hard for him. And for a long time, Will hides his handicap. But over the series, maybe into season 3 to 4, he lets his guard down and begins to use a text text-to-speech tool. His phone reads text aloud to him from restaurant menus to crime files. So text-to-speech, as we know, has been around for decades, long before today's AI. But AI is what makes it better and better and better and better. Not only, it's really a two-prong AI tool in that it uses the camera to look at what you want it to read, whether it's a menu or a document, and then it uses its voice features to be able to read it to you in a very natural way rather than a robotic way. So the listening experience is just so much better. So at any rate, it does have a little bit of a link to AI because of this speech to text, but generally I just highly recommend the show Will Trent. I love a crime show, but mainly I love the humanity of the characters. It's a real feel-good show, and it is also very bingeable with 4 seasons and more than 50 episodes, like the aiGED podcast, 50 episodes as of this episode. All right, before we wrap up, I do want to take one listener question, and here it is. If I want to change chatbots, say move from Gemini to ChatGPT, do I need to start from scratch, or can I copy my chat history and bring it into my new AI chatbot? You definitely can copy your chat history and a lot of information. So how you do that differs slightly for each chatbot. So this is something, if you want to do it, I would recommend that you just ask your AI how to do it, and your AI will walk you through how to copy your history, and then you can import it into your new AI. And what you might do, which I would recommend, is before you completely break up with your initial AI, which in my world, my initial AI was ChatGPT, and I broke up with it and moved over to Claude. But I did keep my information in both of them for several months just to make sure that I didn't want to go back. So anyway, ask your AI to help you walk through how to do that, but you definitely can. Okay, so this has been quite an episode. Thank you so much for listening, and I want to thank those of you who have encouraged others to follow the aiGED podcast. I want to thank you, and I want to encourage others to follow your lead. At aiGED, we do live on the helpful side of AI, but we do know that AI can be hazardous. So please be sure to protect your info, double check advice, and most important, trust your judgment. And remember, it is never too late to learn something new, especially something that might make life easier and more fun. Cheers!